Hello all, Jules here for WhatCulture.com, and I just want to start off this video by stating that no matter what we think about the current state of wrestling video games, we all have our favourite title which we'll go to bat for. For many, it's No Mercy. For the purists out there, it's Know Your Role. And for those who love being middle managers, that you've always got the Fire Pro Wrestling series. I kid, it's actually brilliant. Yet with such a sheer mass of wrestling games, you'd expect there to be a fair few secrets hidden within their rippling folds. Well, that's what I'm here to talk to you about today, as with the help of Jamie Kennedy, we've dug through the sweaty code and throughout every swollen vein in order to find out some surprising secrets and the stories behind them. I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 7 incredible stories behind the making of WWE video games. Number 7. Owen Hart Tribute, WWF Attitude. WWF Attitude is kind of a B-tier wrestling game for many, as while its customization options were through the roof, allowing you to change things like the color of the lighting, the canvas and apron, and that its roster and match type selection were big show levels of wide, the game itself, well, it kind of plays like Rock'em Sock'em Robots more than anything else. Plus, the characters walk like Matt Hardy does today, and he's only doing so because he's taken so many butt bumps that his spine and legs have actually fused. However, it's still an enjoyable romp, and actually quite a touching one as well, all because it contains several references to the late and great Owen Hart. Hart, who tragically passed away during an accident on the 1993 Over the Edge pay-per-view, was included as a playable character in the game, and a memorial was added to the game before it was shipped. And that was no small feat, as the game had actually been finalized and was almost out of the door. Therefore, Attitude, and whatever you think of it as a game, is one of the only wrestling games you can say is dedicated to a fallen icon. Number 6. Money Mayweather and Iron Mike, SmackDown vs. Raw 2009/WWE 13. Floyd Mayweather worked a surprisingly good boxer versus wrestler match with Big Show at WrestleMania 24 in 2008. Now I say surprisingly because everyone thought that this was going to be a dumpster fire, so to actually cheer the match was a triumph in its own right. The match was so well received, in fact, that THQ wanted to digitalize Mayweather for use in their upcoming SmackDown vs. Raw 2009 title. Now talks progressed quite well, but then for some reason Floyd just pulled out of negotiations. Now, the problem here was that the developers had actually already created code for his entrance, moveset, and animations, and because nothing could be immediately done, they simply just gathered dust on the back catalogue. Yet, as fans know from these games, the animations of the wrestlers haven't actually changed in years, so when it came time to look and add Mike Tyson into WWE 13, one lucky developer found the unused code and pretty much just clocked off early for lunch. I say that because the entrances of both boxers are identical, and if you look at some of the weird hit detection, you can almost tell that the model for Mike was just an elongated one of Floyd's. Well, I mean, whatever works, right? Number 5. The Hardy Boys' first big gig was WWF Warzone and Attitude. The unified Raw that met the Hardy Boys when they surprised everyone at WrestleMania 33 proved, if ever there was any need, that Matt and Jeff are one of the most popular pairs ever to lace boots. Their over-the-top style, rocking theme song, and the fact that they might be absolutely insane in 2 very different ways makes it almost a guarantee that any crowd will be left entertained. However, it turns out that they've actually been providing this level of fan service for quite a while, as even though they were still very much greenhorns in the WWF, they managed to get a gig as motion capture actors for WWF Warzone. Covered in more balls than even your mum down at the docks, on a weekend, Matt and Jeff would play out all the different moves for Acclaim's technical wizards to capture and animate, and also, that's my one per list. It's amazing to think that when you're smashing Shawn Michaels with that stunner that it's actually Matt and Jeff just larking about. And later, the brothers would return to do exactly the same thing for 1999's Attitude. The same year that they would effectively break their own glass ceiling by entering into a series of matches with Edge and Christian that would set the world on fire. Number 4. Keep on rolling, baby. SmackDown Just Bring It /Raw. Now, believe it or not, there was a time when Fred Durst could do no wrong. The backwards baseball cap wearing bad boy of rap-tinged rock was everywhere, and many remember his vocals as being the backing track to The Undertaker's dominant streak in the 2000s. However, being the dead man's vocals just wasn't enough for poor old Fred, and so he insisted upon being included in the PS2 game SmackDown Just Bring It in 2001 and in the following year's Raw title. Bit cheeky, but there we go. Now, to be fair, it wasn't a huge leap for THQ to get this setup because they'd actually implemented Durst in the game as part of The Undertaker's entrance, so all they did was slap some moves onto Freddy and let the crowd go, well, mild would probably be the apt term there. It did make for some weird situations, though, where you could legitimately win the WWF title as Fred Durst. But you know what? In the grand scheme of wrestling and celebrities, this does seem pretty apt. Number 3. Unfinished Big Show, SmackDown 2 Know Your Role. Despite being released just 8 months after the original, SmackDown 2 Know Your Role was an improvement on the first game in every conceivable way. There were new match types like ladders and casket matches, the career mode finally had some actual tangible storylines, and the arcade gameplay was refined to become much more satisfying than before. However, that's not to say that everything made the cut. Case and point, The Big Show, who had a different set of cuts to deal with, as this was when he was sent down to OVW in hopes of shifting some weight from his rather sizable frame. This was a shame for fans because he's such an iconic wrestler that on the original SmackDown game, he was a good pick to dish out the damage. But that's not to say that he was completely removed from the game, as for some reason, quite possibly an oversight by THQ, if you entered the Royal Rumble match, there was a chance that a wrestler called Unknown would appear and head to the ring. And wouldn't you know it, he looked exactly like and had the same moves as The Big Show. He's remained unchanged since the first game, not notice on the PS1 graphics, but it proves that even without being officially in the game, this big bad boy is still a show stealer. Puns, I've still got them. Number 2. Triple H cannot be vulnerable. SmackDown vs. Raw 2009. Now this one is absolutely hilarious, simply because of the lengths that game developers went to protect their King of Kings, Triple H. Now Mr. Kennedy, who as I mentioned before, helped craft this fine list, and he used to work for the UK division of Fighting Spirit magazine, and when it came round to reviewing SmackDown vs. Raw 2009, their copies came with a blanket mass media email which made them laugh. Now it's pretty common for video game publishers to request certain things not be in the review through fears of spoilers and people ripping the footage and just putting it online for their own profit. However, this game had some rules when it came to presenting Triple H. He was not, under any circumstances, to be made to look vulnerable. He wasn't allowed to be shown being pinned or tasting another wrestler's finishing move in screenshots, and he couldn't take a pasting at all. To help, THQ included some shots of Triple H blasting fools with his pedigree finisher or smashing them with his sledgehammer to be used instead. It sounds like a joke, but this is the painful truth. Other things that were banned were Triple H being shown with blood on him or selling for another character on the roster, full stop. It's utterly hilarious, and as you can imagine, a ton of magazines just went directly against this. And number 1, Hulk Hogan's Hairline, King of the Ring. Now, I hate to bag on certain wrestling games, but the 1993 King of the Ring game was a soulless, empty husk of a title and was literally done just to cash in on the latest WWF pay-per-view of the time. The roster was anemic, featuring just 11 wrestlers, and that even included a generic one called You, who you could play as. And the gameplay, well, it was about as deep as a puddle of vomit. However, behind the scenes, things were even more sickening, as Hulk, "I don't think you're gonna go over this time, brother." Hogan was really unhappy with his character model, and by this, I mean that he hated how he'd been given a bald head. Now, Terry, here's the thing, mate, and take it from someone who knows, sometimes you've got to let things go, and your hairline was dead on arrival in the 80s on a good day, so you dropping that atomic leg drop on the publishers to get a comb over reeks of desperation. Still, as per usual, he managed to get his way, and a few pixels were added to his dome. Yet he still complained, and eventually Nick Eastridge, the game's chief developer, threw his hands up in the air and gave him a full head of hair, in effect making Hulk look totally unlike himself. Yet, as we all know, saying your prayers, eating your vitamins, and being a total prima donna is how the Hulkster remained the top dog for so very, very long. And there we go, those were 7 interesting stories about the WWE video games. Let me know what you thought about them down in the comment section below. I do love it when my worlds of gaming and wrestling collide, and I would like to do more of these, so please put your suggestions down there, and I will endeavour to read them. And if you're looking for more stuff that involves my terribly annoying and British voice, then you can go over to the 5 most insane things happening in wrestling every single week, which is a show that I host here on WhatCulture Wrestling. It premieres every Friday at 4 PM. I sounded unsure of that. been doing it for a year. I should really know it by now. And if you want to go chat with me more, you can go follow me at RetroJ over on Twitter. Now, before I sign off, I'll do the usual thing, shops, whatever, merch, blah, blah, blah. But also, just make sure that you treat yourself well. You know this by now. We've been friends for a while, you and I. Treat yourself as best as you possibly can, and please look out for each other. That's my positive mental thought message for the day. And until next time, I'll speak to you soon. Bye.